In this video, I'm going to show you how to update your YC series keyboards to the brand new firmware 1.30 step by step, and more importantly, how to keep your onboard patches as well as keep the brand new set of patches and voices that come with the new firmware update. Let's check it out. Hey guys, it's Steve from Featherlightstudio, and Yamaha just released a brand new update for their YC series of keyboards, firmware update 1.30. And it comes with some amazing new sounds, but it also comes with a lot of new updates to the system itself that allows the keyboard to do some new things. So we need a couple of things to pull this off. We need a couple of USB keys to pull this off, and we want to make sure that we go through it step by step because we don't want to lose our internal data that we've already worked so hard for, our own sounds on our board. And we also want to make sure that we get to save the new sounds and patches that come with the new firmware update. So let's dive in and find out how to do it. The very first thing we're going to do is back up all your onboard sounds before we do anything else. The YC series of keyboards have two different kinds of USB connections on the back. One is a to-host, that's to connect to the computer, and the other one is to device. This is for a USB key to save our settings and sounds. We're going to use this to-device connection to plug in our USB key that we're using to save all of our onboard live sets and sounds first. If we hit the menu button, we can scroll down to File, choose that as an option, and this gives us all the options that we can back up. The first one is going to be a complete machine backup. This saves everything on the keyboard, including all of our sounds and all of our system settings, all the MIDI settings, patch and master keyboard settings, all of those things. From here, we can give our new file a name. If that same file already exists on the key, we can overwrite the file. It saves it and tells us it's been completed when we're finished. From here, we go back to our menu button and scroll down to File, and we're going to make one other kind of backup. We're going to back up all the live sets on the board by themselves. We can also save live sets one by one or even voices individually, but by doing it this way, it gives us the ability to break into this file later and peruse through all of the live sets that are in this particular save and load one by themselves or load all of them. Once all of our old onboard sounds have been safely stored away, it's time to move on to using our key that's only going to hold our firmware update. So from here, we power down the keyboard, and our next step is going to be to format a brand new USB key. We'll take our old USB key that we had just saved our sounds to, we'll pull that out, and we're going to replace it with our new USB key that we're going to format. For this process to work, the key has to be formatted inside the YC, not on your computer. This is where most people get tripped up. They try to speed the process up by using a faster drive or an SD card reader, and it won't work. So save yourself the hassle and use a newly formatted key. The key has to be several gig or larger to hold all the samples, and they're cheap and widely available, and you can use it for other stuff when you're finished. Once the keyboard is powered up and it's connected to the USB device we just plugged in, we can go to our menu settings here. We can scroll down to our file option here and then hit enter on our scroll wheel. This gives us all the same file options we had when we were backing up our data. Scroll all the way down to File Utility. From here, we can rename and delete files, but we're using a new key, so we're going to scroll down to the Format option and choose that, and then we have to select Format one more time before it actually begins formatting, and it gives us a completed notification once the process is complete. From here, we power down the board, we remove our key, and head over to the computer to load our firmware onto our newly formatted key. Our next step is to download our brand new 1.30 firmware from the Yamaha website. I'll leave a link to the download location in the description below. Thankfully, Yamaha makes this process super simple. The download page has notes about each one of the firmware update revisions, so you can check out that info there. Once you scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page, you simply hit the Yes, I agree box, and then you're able to download the file. It should auto-detect what system you're on, Mac or PC, when you load this file. Once you begin the download process, it downloads a zip file, and on most systems, most modern systems, it auto-extracts that to the download location you have set for the default on your computer. From here, we simply scroll to the location that you've downloaded the package to on your computer. You'll notice that it's a file folder, and there's quite a few files in there. There's a couple of text files with very specific instructions on how to update your firmware in a couple different languages, as well as the manual to the firmware update itself in several different languages in PDF form. But the file we're looking for is the PGM file. This is the actual firmware update file itself. You can tell if you look at it by the size, it's nearly 2 gig by the time you include all those new waveform samples. So we're going to take this file and we're going to transfer it to our brand new formatted USB key. It's extremely important that there is no other files on this key other than our PGM update file. Don't use this key to store or transfer voices back and forth with. For this purpose, we're only using it to hold our firmware update file. Now it's time to head back over to the YC and upload our brand new 1.30 firmware. One important note, you can permanently damage your YC if the power cycle is interrupted in any way. Don't plug it into something like this. Whenever possible, plug it directly into the wall for the update process. We take our USB key with our brand new firmware on it and plug it back into the back of the YC, but in order to get the YC into firmware update mode, we have to hold down the store and the menu buttons at the same time while powering the machine on. This puts the YC in update mode and tells it to look for a firmware file on the USB key. Continue to hold down both the store and menu buttons until you see the now loading screen appear in the LCD. The YC will immediately show you the currently loaded firmware and the firmware you're about to update to. From here, you can exit the process and reboot, or you can hit enter and start. This gives you one last chance to abort. If you hit the button again, you'll begin the update process. This is a long process. This took about 20 to 25 minutes with an average speed USB key for the entire process to complete. So be patient and let it run through its entire cycle, and under no circumstances should you interrupt the power cycle in any way or turn the YC off, or you could permanently damage your keyboard. I've sped the process up here about 20 times to give you an overview. When the entire process completes, you'll get a notification in the LCD window that says it's completed and to turn off the YC keyboard. Now it's time to save all these new sounds that come in our firmware update. So we're going to get our original USB key that we used to save all of our original sounds on, and we're going to put it back into the YC, and we're going to save these new sounds in our firmware update to this same key. When we first power on the YC, we get our familiar flash screen, and it connects to the USB device, and after which, if we hit the menu button, and then we scroll down to version info with our data wheel and press enter, we can confirm that we've successfully updated to the 1.30 version firmware. From here, our YC series keyboard is back to its factory state, and the only difference being it has the new sounds in its voice library. If we hit the up and down arrow on our rocker switch here, we can step through each one of the pianos, and here we see we have the brand new Hamburg Grand. If we keep going, we can see that we also have the brand new felt piano, and in addition to all these new samples that we get to play with and build new patches with, we also have brand new live sets as well as brand new voices to explore and to build new patches with as well. So we want to make sure we save all of these, so we're going to hit menu, scroll down to file, and we're going to back up all of our live sets that are currently updated because of our new firmware, so that we can pick and choose through these later and add them to our original sound sets. Once we choose the save option, we're presented with the same set of options here, and we're going to create a brand new file, and we're going to name it Firmware Update 1.30 so that we know these contain all of the new sound sets and voices that came with this firmware update. And there are many to choose from. We want to go through each one of them and spend our own time exploring all the new sonic possibilities with this. And we also want to be able to pick and choose through them and work them into our existing sounds that we had saved at the beginning of this video. There's way too many sounds to check out for just one video, but let's take a quick listen at just a few and check out some of the new capabilities that this firmware update brings to the YC keyboards. One of the biggest changes by far with the new firmware update is the addition of new pan settings for all of the engines, including the organ settings. So for example, if we have our outputs set to left and right, we can hard pan the organ all the way to the left and get a true independent output, which means we can independently have a signal chain, a hardware signal chain now, which we never had before. So for example, if you plug your organ into a Neo ventilator or maybe an Electro Harmonix Lester G, you can have a completely independent hardware signal chain on stage that isn't reliant on the old stereo outputs like before. And then on this one, on the right side, that could be maybe electric piano, and maybe that goes into an overdrive pedal or a chorus. So we now have the ability by hard panning our engines to a specific location to get real independent outs. This gives us tons of options, tons of configurations that we didn't have before, the ability to have completely independent hardware signal chains on stage based on the outputs of the board. Previously unavailable on the FM organ section, Yamaha has shown a lot of love in this department by giving brand new vibrato and chorus effects for each one of the FM organs, and they're different for each selection. 3 new vibrato choices and 3 new chorus choices for each one of the FM engines. The F1 organ uses scanner-based vibrato and chorus effects. The F2 engine offers 3 different kinds of pitch modulation vibrato and 3 kinds of scanner-based chorus. The F3 engine offers 3 kinds of vibrato that change in depth and speed, but instead of scanner-based chorus, it offers amplitude modulation-based chorus. The F4 engine offers simple pitch modulation-based vibrato, but it offers a single-phase analog-style chorus sound. The F5 engine offers the same simple pitch modulation-based vibrato, but the chorus is now flange-based, and there's 3 different types of that. The F6 engine offers an even more complex selection of effects, 3 different kinds of phaser-based vibrato effects, and 3 kinds of mid-range or ring-modulated chorus effects. One of the other big changes to the brand new firmware update from Yamaha is the ability to affect both of the engine's keys A and B simultaneously. So if you hit and hold the button, both keys A and B engines will light up. So for example, if we change the octave, it'll affect the octave for both keys A and B engines. The LEDs that illuminate means that setting's the same for both engines. The ones that don't light means they're different. But if you twist the knob, it'll force apply that to both of the engines A and B. This is super handy when you want to affect both the key A and B engines at the same time, either tone or brightness or octave. And when you make parameter changes or effects changes that affect both engines, it shows up here in the LCD as A and B. This is a quick way to add effects to both the keys A and B engines and add continuity between the voices. And one of the last big changes they made with this firmware update is the way the organ speeds are treated when you go from patch to patch. It's not very realistic to go from one patch to another and have the organ speeds dramatically change, since a real Leslie wouldn't work that way either. Now we can determine the way the keyboard is going to behave when it comes to organ settings in the menu system. If we hit menu, go down to control panel, and then scroll down to rotary speaker settings, we can hit the change button and scroll to hold now. So we can have it either way. If we have it on hold, whatever speed the organ's at when we're actually playing the keyboard is maintained when we switch patches. So as you can see, Yamaha's done a great job at keeping these boards up to date, not just by adding new sounds and patches and live sets, but also adding new capabilities to the board itself, which really extends the capabilities of it, not just for a live keyboard, but for a studio board as well. So kudos to Yamaha for doing such a great job. Hey, if you learned something or if this was helpful in any way, please hit the subscription and notification bells. It does help keep the channel going. Thanks for hanging out with me today, guys. I appreciate it. Stay safe. Be creative. Add something creative to the world. It could really use it. We'll catch you guys in the next video.